this is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed human.
It's an Olympics you'll never forget. Prime time in Milan. The moments.
Chloe Kim with the gold medal flex.
The stars.
Ilya Malinin.
Out of this world.
The spectacle from beautiful northern Italy with very special guests every night of the Olympics. Experience the world's biggest show. Prime time in Milan, tonight 8/7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
Why have I asked my electrician I found on Angie.com to bury my pet hamster Nibbles in our yard for me? Because I was so moved by how carefully he buried my electrical wires, I knew I could trust him to bury my sweet Nibbles after his untimely end. Nibbles, gone too soon. May he scurry in peace.
Hey, sorry about your pet, but I just wire stuff.
Nibbles would have loved you like a brother.
Connecting homeowners with skilled pros for over 30 years. Angie, the one you trust to find the ones you trust. Find pros for all your home projects at Angie.com.
The big game commercials are basically must-see TV. This year, Elf Cosmetics went all out with an absurdly funny telenovela called Melissa. It stars Melissa McCarthy, Nicholas Gonzalez, Itati Cantoral, and Elf Glow Reviver Lip Oil. The Elf Glow Reviver Lip Oil is an ultra-glossy tinted lip oil that nourishes, hydrates, and enhances your lips' natural color.
Watch the full episode of their new Elf novela on soyunbaño.com.
Ever wonder why so many people regain weight after stopping a GLP-1? Up to 40% of the weight lost can come from lean muscle. This weakens the body, slows metabolism, and makes it easier to put the pounds back on, creating a cycle of dependency. Prolon's 5-day fasting-mimicking diet offers a drug-free way to maintain results and support long-term metabolic health. In just 5 days, it activates fasting pathways to burn fat, protect muscle, and rejuvenate cells, all while letting you enjoy real food. Get 15% off plus a $40 bonus gift when you subscribe at prolonlife.com/iHeart. That's prolonlife.com/iHeart.
Hey, Tolliver, before we get to the show, I have something to say, which is that the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which, as you know, didn't give us any money directly, but does give money to all the public radio stations, and that has been completely ended. They are shutting down in the next 2 months. And what is starting to happen now is that the stations that are a big part of our fundraising here at the Middle that pay us for the show, they're starting to say, well, we can't afford it. We've got it. We need a discount. So I'm asking you, podcast listener, if you can, please make a contribution to us at listentothemiddle.com. It is tax deductible. It's with our partnership with Journalism Funding Partners, and it makes a huge difference, and it will help us deal with some of the discounts that we're going to have to give to some stations that are in really dire shape and may go out of business. And so they're trying to save money everywhere they can. We are on a shoestring budget as it is, so your donation in any amount really helps. Please do it right now at listentothemiddle.com. Thank you so much, and enjoy the show. Welcome to The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson, along with our house DJ, Tolliver. And Tolliver, you are only just a part-time DJ for us. You are also a musician. And I want to just tell our listeners that you are coming out with a new single this week. And the last one, I believe, was on the season finale of Abbott Elementary. So this could be, I don't know what show will be next, but you're in manufacturing
I've been
of music.
doing this show, just for the promo. That's why I'm here, man.
That's right. Well, if you look at the bottom of your laptop, Tolliver, you will see that it was made in China. So was mine. So we're about 70% of the laptops sold in the United States. And this week, President Trump had an event with Apple CEO Tim Cook, in which Cook promised that Apple would be pledging another $100 billion for U.S. manufacturing to try and bring more production to the United States. That's on top of $500 billion already pledged by Apple for the next few years. Now, I don't know which public radio volunteer is going to be keeping track of whether these pledges are fulfilled in the end, but they're being made right now. They're being made. A lot of promises from a lot of companies that don't want to get on President Trump's bad side. The U.S. manufacturing sector, though, used to account for about 20% of GDP. That was in the 1950s. It is 10% today, much lower than countries like China, Japan, Germany. And that is one of the stated reasons for President Trump's tariffs against other countries, to try and bring manufacturing back to the United States. So this hour, we're going to be asking if a reindustrialized America is still possible, and if it is, what it would look like for you. Our phone number is 844-4MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. Or you can reach out at listentothemiddle.com. We're going to get to that in just a moment. But first, last week on the show, we asked if crime is an issue where you live and what you want to see done about it. Here are some of the calls that came in on our voicemail after the show.
This is Mike from Grand Rapids, Michigan. I have an issue about crime. I believe it's up because I've had my place broken into several times, and I've had things taken out of this house.
Hello, my name is Kaylin. I'm from Philadelphia. Crime is usually due to poverty and mainly lack of funding for different types of programs. I always get different notifications of different crimes, and it's usually crimes that involve a teen or some sort of child, and it just makes me think like that probably wouldn't have happened if, say, that child was in some sort of after-school club or program.
My name is Cody. I'm calling from Lexington, Kentucky. Police department is saying they need more officers. I think in at least some scenarios, they might not need more officers. They might need different officers.
Well, thanks to everyone who called in, and you can hear that entire episode on our podcast in partnership with iHeart Podcasts on the iHeart app or wherever you listen to podcasts. So now to our topic this hour. Is a re-industrialized America filled with factories and well-paying manufacturing jobs still possible, and what would it look like for you? Tolliver, how can people reach us?
Yeah, you can call us at 844-4MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. Or you can write to us, I'll go slow, listentothemiddle.com. And you can also comment on our live stream on YouTube. I'm checking them all, so please get those comments in, you guys.
Joining me this hour, former Congressman Tim Ryan of Ohio. Congressman, welcome back to the Middle.
Thank you for having me.
And Elisabeth Reynolds is joining us as well, professor of the practice in the MIT Department of Urban Studies and Planning, and expert on manufacturing and industrial strategy. Elisabeth, welcome to you as well.
Thank you so much.
And before we get to the phones, Tim Ryan, you are a Democrat, not on the same page politically as the president, but what do you think about his goal of reindustrializing America and his methods of trying to accomplish that goal?
Well, I think it's a great goal. I mean, I think it's, very much aligned with the goal of the Biden administration that they had about, how do we reindustrialize? How do we, kind of have an understanding that we're going to have to let go of some of those low value jobs. We just can't keep up with those, but we should have an industrial policy in the United States that, tries to drive investment into the United States for the chip manufacturing, for the electric vehicles, the batteries, the high-end stuff. We should be doing that here in the United States. So I agree with the goal. I think it may end there.
Not the methods.
Not the methods. I mean, you talk about, one thing businesses like is stability, and this has been one of the most unstable and unstable presidencies we've seen since Liberation Day, probably before that until now. Tariffs on, tariffs off. How do you, win projects dismantled, not permitted, whatever, and then they're back online? How do you possibly, as a CEO, board of directors, plan to reindustrialize the United States if you don't even know what the day-to-day, regimes are going to be, tax regimes, regulatory regimes? Mm-hmm. So I think in that regard, again, I think it's typical Trump too. He gets the top line stuff very, very well. Gets that intuitively. Manufacturing, immigration, go down the line, government's broken, government reform, whatever. Then you peel it onion back one level and, you're into pure chaos.
Elisabeth Reynolds, what do you think about the goal, and why should the United States be a country that makes things rather than just designing and programming them like we do at this point with things like iPhones and laptops?
Well, I certainly agree with the goal, and I agree as well. We've had multiple administrations now who have all acknowledged that we really need to be reinvesting in our industrial base. And that's not only because it's the heart of our industrial systems, whether it's energy, transportation, materials, but it's also the gateway into the frontier technologies, whether it's in biotech, quantum, all of the things we've been, we're focused on, and we're focused on particularly in terms of resiliency in our supply chains, investing in those semiconductors, investing in critical minerals. Now with the geopolitics going on, we need to really reinvest in this industrial base. So it's a critical piece. It's not enough. We've done now decades of design it here, make it there. And it's left us incredibly vulnerable. I mean, look at what happened during the pandemic. We didn't have PPE, we didn't have semiconductors.
Well, so and that's one of the things that the Trump administration has been saying is that it's an actual national security issue. We've got to be making things like cars and ships and airplanes and computers in the United States. Do you agree with that, Elisabeth?
I agree. I think it's a national and economic security issue. We recall when the semiconductor chips were, weren't available because they're mostly made in Taiwan by one company. We had inflation jump up by a third. I mean, this is an economic problem for the country as well. So it is, I think that's true, which requires a strategic approach to it. So I would agree with the Congressman, broad-based tariffs across, all goods with allies and partners is not the way to do this.
Not targeted. And what about the other thing that people would say a strong manufacturing base would bring, which is a stronger middle class? Congressman, when you look back at the last time there was kind of a golden age in manufacturing in the United States, it also coincided with a golden age of unions, which brought up the wages, and people were able to work in union factories and get good paying jobs. Now, a lot of the companies that want to maybe build cars in the U.S. will go to a right to work state like Alabama or South Carolina. And maybe, does a manufacturing job necessarily mean a good paying middle class job?
Well, it can. And I think in some ways it does now. I mean, I come from an area of the country in Northeast Ohio that it was literally a Bruce Springsteen song. I mean, there's a song called Youngstown,
Right.
And so, the Bruce Springsteens and Billy Joels who wrote about this stuff, like I was born in 1973, and so I watched this whole thing unravel. And it started to, the southern states, the right to work states, then it went to Mexico, especially after NAFTA. We literally had factories close here and move over the border into the maquiladoras and ship the product back. We had our workers actually have to go down there and train the workers who were going to take their jobs. So that's why the trade issue and the unfairness issue is still in the DNA of a lot of Americans, especially in these kind of industrial states, whether you're in the Midwest, even the textiles down the Atlantic seaboard, even to some extent manufacturing and steel in the South, in some of those areas in Alabama, for example. So the idea of bringing these jobs back is a good one, and I think a noble one, and one we need to have. And I'll give you one example. So there's a battery plant that opened up in Lordstown, Ohio. Now, this is all perspective, right? So we had a General Motors plant that had 16,000 workers there, all United Auto workers. We had a Delphi plant that supplied that plant that had 12 or 13,000 workers there. They were all IUE, CWA, but all union. So you're talking just right there, 30,000 good-paying auto worker jobs in the late 60s, 70s, into the 80s. Now these factories are closed, and there's a battery plant there. The battery plant now is a partnership with General Motors and I think LG Chem. There's about 2,000 auto workers there. They're making about $30-35 an hour, pretty good wage these days in manufacturing. So can you get these jobs back? Yes. And I think the Biden administration, and I've had some criticisms of the administration, but the thing they got absolutely right is the reindustrialization policies that they put forward. And that's why that factory's there. And then also being pro-union, it's a unionized shop. So, but the problem is there's only 2,000 of them there. So you really need an industrial policy to help grow this, because that, as excited as everyone is to have that there, it's not 30,000, it's 2. And so we've got to really get to work on this, because, the middle class is gone.
I want to ask Elisabeth just after this break about AI and whether even trying to bring back manufacturing jobs, you can outrun the technology. But Tolliver, there was, of course, the Industrial Revolution back in the 1800s with the rise of machines. There was another peak for industry in the U.S. after World War II.
Yeah, big time for American steel production was in the 1950s. Here's a clip from an educational film commissioned by the AFL-CIO in 1959.
It is the steelworker, trained and highly skilled, who is responsible for the doing. In the blooming mill, steel ingots begin the shaping that will later turn them into the thousands of things of steel that surround us everywhere. As the rougher and his assistants guide the blooms of steel through the rollers, making them longer and thinner, eventually giving them useful shapes, think of what their work and the work of the men they have followed has meant to our country.
By the way, the U.S. is now the fourth largest steel producer in the world, with number one China's share expanding rapidly over the last couple of decades.
I feel like I keep hearing this about so many industries.
Yes, but that one, big time. The chart is pretty stunning. We'll be back with more of The Middle.
It's an Olympics you'll never forget. Prime time in Milan. The moments.
Chloe Kim with the gold medal flex.
The stars.
Ilya Malinin.
Out of this world.
The spectacle from beautiful northern Italy with very special guests every night of the Olympics. Experience the world's biggest show. Prime time in Milan. Tonight, 8/7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
Why have I asked my HVAC guy I found on Angie.com to change my grandpa's trachea tube? Because I was so amazed by how quickly he replaced our air ducts. I knew I could trust him to change Pop-Pop's tube while I was on vacation.
Make it quick, young man.
Aw, see? Pop-Pop trusts you.
I think we should call a doctor.
Connecting homeowners with skilled pros for over 30 years. Angie, the one you trust to find the ones you trust. Find pros for all your home projects at Angie.com.
You see it instantly. It's Coldwater Creek, the mark of exceptional workmanship and signature touches inspired by a Mountain West heritage. Distinctive styles created from quality fabrics, silhouettes perfected with just the right drape, feel-good fits offering ease of movement, and thoughtful details to elevate your look. Coldwater Creek's authenticity is embodied in every piece, embracing its confident spirit that carries through to today. Discover Coldwater Creek clothing, designed to fit your life the way you want. For a wardrobe you can count on season after season, visit coldwatercreek.com. Shop the new spring collection at 20% off $75 or more with code IHEART20.
Welcome to the A Building. I'm Hans Charles.
I'm Menelik Lumumba. It's 1969. Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. had both been assassinated, and Black America was at a breaking point. Rioting and protests broke out on an unprecedented scale.
In Atlanta, Georgia, at Martin's alma mater, Morehouse College, the students had their own protest. It featured two prominent figures in Black history, Martin Luther King Sr. and a young student, Samuel L. Jackson.
To be in what we really thought was a revolution. I mean, people were dying.
1968, the murder of Dr. King, which traumatized everyone.
The FBI had a role in the murder of a Black Panther leader in Chicago.
This story is about protest. It echoes in today's world far more than it should, and it will blow your mind.
Listen to the A Building on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson. If you're just tuning in, The Middle is a national call-in show. We're focused on elevating voices from the middle, geographically, politically, and philosophically, or maybe you just want to meet in the middle. This hour, we're asking if a re-industrialized America is still possible, and if it is, what it would look like for you. Tolliver, what is the number to call in?
It's 844-4MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. You can also write to us at listentothemiddle.com or on all social media.
I'm joined by Elisabeth Reynolds, professor of the practice in the MIT Department of Urban Studies and Planning, and former Ohio Congressman Tim Ryan. The phone lines are lighting up, but before we get to them, Elisabeth Reynolds, I just want to ask you, do you think that even with all the right policy, we can outrun the technology right now that may be able to do the job better and cheaper than a person?
Well, you know, that question has been a perennial question through every wave of new technology. You know, it was a few years ago, was the robots are coming, they're going to take all our jobs. It turned out not to be the case. And I think that the jury is out with AI in terms of its impact. But in the end, our challenge in the U.S. in manufacturing, we have two major challenges. One is that we're not adopting enough technology. to actually compete in those industries that Congressman Ryan was talking about and bring that, a lot of this manufacturing to bear. And secondly, we don't have enough workers. And so can we find a way to use the technology to both, help us with a worker shortage and augment our workers so that they're more productive, and we're using more technology, to help advance in productivity, quality, yield, safety, all of those things. So I actually think AI is going to be a benefit to our manufacturing goals. And, we have to, as always, we have to be thinking about investing in our workers as well, and thinking about ways in which we support them through technological transitions like this.
Let's get to the phones. Brad is calling from Pennsburg, Pennsylvania. Brad, your thoughts on whether America can be re-industrialized?
No, I really don't think so. I've been involved with manufacturing for 20 years. I've worked for major machine tool builders. At this point, they're all out of business. There's no base to build machinery. The experts, like myself in service and engineering and design, I'm the last one left of my company that went out of business 20 years ago. Nobody is coming up to replace us. And everywhere I go, I see signs looking for people. They want machine designers, they want machine programmers, they want machine operators. You're going to need thousands of people that are just not interested in those positions. And there's no companies that can build the required machinery because they've all been sold off for pieces. Bridgeport,
is there,
Harding,
as somebody,
Monarch,
Brad, who's been in the business for, as you said, you 20 years in manufacturing, do you see a solution? Do you see a way to bring manufacturing back to the United States in a big way?
No, because everything's coming from overseas now. The castings, the computers, the bearings, the screws, all the components to build machines have to come from overseas. The Italian, German, Japanese, Chinese. There's no way you can import the volume that's needed, and they can just say no. They'll embargo this stuff, and they can easily put a stomp on it. And the tariffs have made service prices go through the roof in the past year.
Brad, thank you for that call.
Parts have tripled. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it. Congressman Ryan, what do you, sort of a down note from Brad, but somebody who's been in the industry for a long time?
Yeah, I know a lot of guys like Brad who feel the same way. 20 years ago, 25 years ago, I guess, when I started in politics, I would tour those facilities, mom and pop tool and die manufacturing shops and all that. And again, watch that unravel as well. I do think it would take, a continuation of an industrial policy. I think in the last few years, we kind of got the top line stuff right and the chip manufacturing stuff right, but we got to get into supply chains. We've got to get into how we regrow these industries. And again, getting back to maybe your first question, is like, this is where I'd really disagree with Trump, because it's really the culture now is, oh, Trump will put a tariff on, everything will be okay. Well, that's just ridiculous. That's not how it's going to work. It needs to be a policy, as Liz knows, because she's worked on this. How do we start with our kids in schools, K through 12, starting getting them prepared for jobs in these areas? How do we have, creative and imaginative public-private partnerships and programs, like the manufacturing extension program, something like that, where you're actually helping regrow some of these industries. There are still some companies around. There's not a lot. We've lost a lot. But how do we help those companies grow and expand, and tax incentives and development and work, all that stuff? Like, I bet Liz probably has a plan she could hold up and say, here's how we would do it. So I'll let you go to Liz on that. But from my vantage point, you need the political will and the political leadership that's going to roll up their sleeves and do it, and bring government together to actually work, different agencies and all the rest. Tax incentives and all in investments and private sector needs to be a part of that as well. And then get the political will to do it. But you got to have a plan.
Well, and I'm sure we're going to get to Liz's plan in this hour. Let me first, though, go to Barbara.
I feel like we're
Colorado.
to debate, Jeremy. And Liz has a plan.
But you guys agree on a lot of things.
I'm ready. Ready.
Okay, Barbara is calling from Pueblo, Colorado. Barbara, your thoughts?
So I'm kind of on the fence with this. My thoughts are, yes, if we're bringing jobs that are in Europe or in Canada or in Australia or in any of the countries that have a standard of living commensurate to ours, yes, that's probably a good thing for us. If we're bringing jobs from countries where they are paying their workers pennies on the dollar to make goods for us, and we're bringing those industries back to the U.S., and our people are going to want to have decent living wages, and then the costs of all those items are going to go skyrocketing in the stores to us. So that's my thought.
So the wages, the wages in the U.S. compared to other countries. Your thoughts on that, Liz?
Oh, well, let me just say, Barbara, I completely agree, and every economist would agree with you, that we aren't going to compete on low value-added, low cost products. You know, the toys and the sneakers are not something that we can afford to make in the U.S. Because we pay better wages and we want to have more quality jobs for workers in manufacturing. But having said that, I want to also be clear, like when we talk about bringing it back, we're actually building in a different way. We're not going to, the way you make semiconductors in China is not how we're going to make them in the U.S. And what our secret sauce is our innovation and our technological capabilities. So we are doing things in a different way. And in many of these areas, we can actually leapfrog today's technology and do it better and more efficiently and more, and again, higher quality paid jobs. That's the goal. And I think that right now, what this tariff I won't call it a strategy, but the tariff trade war we're involved in now makes no distinction between any of this. It just slaps a bunch of, high tariffs on, friends and foes alike. And it hurts the 250,000 manufacturers we have in the country, most of them small and medium sized, who have to import some of these, parts, whether it's screws or semiconductors, they're importing them and their costs are going up. So that to me is, we've had a lot of tailwinds, I think, behind the reindustrialization effort. And now this is a headwind.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, the effective average tariff rate, this is from today in the Wall Street Journal, on all imported goods now stands at roughly 18% versus 2.3% last year. That's the highest level since the 1930s. This is according to the Wall Street Journal. Tolliver, what's coming in online at this point?
So much. Marie in Sherborne, Massachusetts says, I think the goal of bringing jobs, including manufacturing jobs, back to the U.S. is a good idea, a good goal. I think the way we're going about it doesn't really exist. I'm not sure what that means. Keenan in Layton, Utah says, we can and should. I think it's important to be specific about the kinds of manufacturing that we want. We do not want to make spatulas. We want to make computer chips. We want to make solar panels. We want to build green energy. I want to make spatulas personally.
Spatulas. Okay.
Let's end with, go for it. Yeah.
Okay,
Joseph
fine.
and Lawrence
I will go for it. Hunter. Well, let me go to Hunter. We've got a delay between you and me today, Tolliver.
Yeah,
Hunter is in Columbia, South Carolina. Hunter, go ahead with your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I've grown up here in Columbia, South Carolina all my life, and the state seems to be a haven for manufacturing. I go to school in the upstate. Currently, I work in a pharmacy, but I'm having friends who are, from a young age, able to generate a pretty significant income for someone our age in the manufacturing sector. I mean, whether that be, tires or in the vehicle industry. There's not a ton of manufacturing. It's mostly around Columbia. It's automobile related. So I guess my question would be, I mean, how much planning are we putting, I guess especially with President Trump being in power, is this manufacturing kind of revolution, I mean, is it going to be, the good old South, right to work state kind of way, or, I guess that's the way Trump would have it, but, or is someone else going to be kind of leading this charge to increase wages?
I'm going to take that question to the Congressman, but let me just ask you this, Hunter, just before you let you go. It sounds like you're pretty young and you've got a lot of young friends who are getting into this industry. Do they feel like this is the career that they want, that this is going to give them the good paying jobs for the rest of their life that they're interested in?
Absolutely. I would think so. Looks like we've got I've got friends who are looking at making six-figure salaries within maybe 3 years of their high school graduation, at least in my case.
Wow.
For me, I mean,
Wow.
I'm looking at maybe another 6 years of school before I can even touch those numbers. So, I mean, it's definitely, it's making people think.
Yeah. Very interesting. Hunter, thank you very much for that. Congressman Ryan, your thoughts on that, and he brought up the right to work issue. I mean, you are apparently considering a run for governor of Ohio. Is it a right to work state, Ohio?
No. They tried.
No. So are you worried about these jobs going to places like South Carolina if they come?
I mean, it's always a concern for those of us who are in the North or in the Midwest. That's always a concern in the competition for our state economic development offices to have to compete with that. Fortunately, there's other aspects of growth and investment that companies make. Supply chain, energy costs, workforce skill development, skills, those kind of things. And I think we can compete on a lot of those areas. Some of the high-end manufacturing, especially in energy, you look at natural gas, you look at nuclear, new nuclear, hopefully. You really do need a skilled and trained workforce. And I think the unions are selling their labor to some pretty high-end folks. And you're seeing the respect and approval ratings for unions shoot through the roof. I think it's because of the economic anxiety. When I started in Congress, I was considered like I'm a knuckle dragger because I'm like with the unions, and I think there was like maybe 20% approval maybe for the unions. When I left Congress, it was about 65+% supported unions. So I think this is saying they want the skills, and they, especially in the building and construction trades, where they're seeing super high skill levels, and they don't want time delays. They don't want problems with the product. They want to be able to. So I think there's an opportunity. Again, UAW contract at the battery plant, because those auto workers know they're very sophisticated now. They've been through the ringer. If you're still an auto worker today, you know what the hell you're doing. They have some of that legacy talent that the previous caller talked about. So I think there's an opportunity. But what you want to do is you want to create an environment in the United States to focus on these high ends. And I just want to real quickly touch, Jeremy, on what Liz said. I think it's so important that we see things like AI and not bury our head in the sand and be afraid. We have to embrace these technologies, the blockchain, AI, and say, how do we help this one worker really expand productivity for the company? But that worker better have the skills necessary. So what are our governors talking about as far as skills development K through 12? Because are they prepared to step into a manufacturing job at 18 years old? And think about the trajectory of that kid's life, no student debt, and within 3 years, by the time they're 21, by the time they can have a drink legally, they're making $100,000, which is making $100,000 at 21 is a good reason to go have a drink.
I mean, yeah. Liz, that was so interesting to hear from that caller say that, their friends are getting jobs in the six figures just right out of high school or within a few years. What about that in the training aspect of what we're talking about here? It's been mentioned for years by both parties. We've got to train people for these jobs of the future, and we've got to get people into trade schools and community colleges and things like that. Is it happening now at the rate that it should be?
I mean, I'm so glad Hunter called in, because actually one of the premier places that we have apprenticeship programs is in South Carolina. They have really developed this incredible pipeline that goes from the high school, community college into BMW and other employers down there, and it's a real model. So we have great models of how to do this. We don't have them at scale yet, and I think that the Biden administration, the Trump administration is continuing a focus on apprenticeship as a model that really works. What we see now, and this is some work MIT's been doing about how do we combine the skills you get sort of from a vocational training with some of the skills you get as an engineer, and how do we put those together? Because that's the kind of skills you need now in the manufacturing space. This is advanced technology, and the next generation actually is really comfortable with technology, interested in working with it, and that I think is a virtuous cycle. If we can get them involved in that, then we bring the skills, and we also bring new technology into the firms, because when you invest in new technology, you invest in your workers, et cetera. So I think that we do have great models for how to do this. We don't have it at scale yet. The other thing I do a shout out is to the Department of Defense. They have been working for over a decade on workforce issues, because they have been aware of this shortage in manufacturing, right? It's in submarines, it's in all sorts of areas of our defense area. So they've been investing in a lot of programs and partnerships that we can learn from. But it is a key challenge, is how do we get the next generation? How do we keep this generation in as long as we can? Because as we heard earlier on, we've got an aging workforce and we're losing a lot of people. How do we bring the next generation in? And I think that we're competing against, if you've got Amazon paying $25 an hour, you better be meeting that.
Yeah. Stand by. I want to just remind our listeners, you can call us at 844-4MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353, or reach out at listentothemiddle.com. Tolliver, American manufacturing actually peaked in terms of raw jobs numbers in 1979. It has been declining, that number, ever since.
Yeah, and during the 80s, it was pretty hard to follow the news without hearing about a factory closing down. Listen to this clip from a 1983 WMC Action News report in Memphis, Tennessee.
One of Memphis' oldest and most important manufacturing plants is shutting down.
International Harvester announced today it will close its Memphis plant on May the 1st. Harvester says the decision is final. There is no chance of the city making another effort to save the 36-year-old plant.
International Harvester says it has lost so much money in its agricultural equipment division, it must close the Memphis plant. Mayor Hackett was one of the first to learn of Harvester's decision today. After meeting with IH officials, he held a news conference at City Hall.
The agribusiness is so poor in this country that they could survive no longer.
By the way, after a number of acquisitions over the years, what's left of International Harvester is now part of the German company Volkswagen.
Oh, guten Tag.
Yeah. We'll be back with more of your calls on The Middle.
It's an Olympics you'll never forget. Prime time in Milan. The moments.
Chloe Kim with the gold medal flex.
The stars.
Ilya Malinin.
Out of this world.
The spectacle from beautiful northern Italy, with very special guests every night of the Olympics. Experience the world's biggest show. Prime time in Milan, tonight 8/7 Central on NBC and Peacock.
Why have I asked my HVAC guy I found on Angie.com to change my grandpa's trachea tube? Because I was so amazed by how quickly he replaced our air ducts. I knew I could trust him to change Pop-Pop's tube while I was on vacation.
Make it quick, young man.
Aw, see? Pop-Pop trusts you.
I think we should call a doctor.
Connecting homeowners with skilled pros for over 30 years. Angie, the one you trust to find the ones you trust. Find pros for all your home projects at Angie.com.
You see it instantly. It's Coldwater Creek, the mark of exceptional workmanship and signature touches inspired by a Mountain West heritage. Distinctive styles created from quality fabrics, silhouettes perfected with just the right drape, feel-good fits offering ease of movement, and thoughtful details to elevate your look. Coldwater Creek's authenticity is embodied in every piece, embracing its confident spirit that carries through to today. Discover Coldwater Creek clothing, designed to fit your life the way you want. For a wardrobe you can count on season after season, visit coldwatercreek.com. Shop the new spring collection at 20% off $75 or more with code IHEART20.
Welcome to the A Building. I'm Hans Charles.
I'm Menelik Lumumba. It's 1969. Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. had both been assassinated, and Black America was at a breaking point. Rioting and protests broke out on an unprecedented scale.
In Atlanta, Georgia, at Martin's alma mater, Morehouse College, the students had their own protest. It featured two prominent figures in Black history, Martin Luther King Sr. and a young student, Samuel L. Jackson.
To be in what we really thought was a revolution. I mean, people were dying.
1968, the murder of Dr. King, which traumatized everyone.
The FBI had a role in the murder of a Black Panther leader in Chicago.
This story is about protest. It echoes in today's world far more than it should, and it will blow your mind.
Listen to The A Building on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is The Middle. I'm Jeremy Hobson, and this hour we're asking if a re-industrialized America is still possible and what it would mean for you. You can call us at 844-4MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353, or you can reach out at listentothemiddle.com. I'm joined by former Ohio Congressman Tim Ryan and Elisabeth Reynolds, a professor of the practice in the MIT Department of Urban Studies and Planning, and a lot of calls on the line. Let's go to Mark, who's in Houston, Texas. Mark, go ahead with your thoughts.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call. I don't think the industrialization will happen unless you can get somehow the stockholders, the people who are just really focused on the profit of a company, to sacrifice some of those profits in order to turn around the manufacturing business in this country. The people who are invested in profit will undermine some of our efforts because they want their companies to go ahead and find the cheapest labor, find the cheapest goods, find the cheapest way, and that's probably going to be, for the most part, outside of the United States. And so unless you can incentivize them to not look for the greatest profit, I don't know how I think all of our efforts will be undermined by a coalition of stockholders, CEOs, anyone who has an interest in seeing a company make a profit. I don't know how it's going to happen because there's just got to be some incentive for them to give up on that.
Right. Okay, Mark, we've got it there. Thank you very much for that. Congressman, what do you think? Corporate greed stand in the way of manufacturing jobs coming back to the United States when they could be cheaper in other countries?
Well, I think there is the drive for quarterly profits, and that's it. That's the incentive in our system. And like many things in our system that are broken today, many of our systems are broken today, it's because the incentives are all messed up. It's the same. It's almost the same. And I thought about this a lot in Congress. We had to run every 2 years. So you get elected in November, you get sworn in January, and you start fundraising, for the next election cycle. And you may have a primary in a year, and a year and a half after that, you're basically in another general election. And so no one's looking at the long term. In the United States political system. And then you look at the business system where it's all about the quarterly profits. Like businesses aren't looking necessarily towards the long term. They want the returns and they want them now. And what we're talking about, what Liz has written about, and what I think the direction we need to go in is that this is a long-term strategy that's going to take an integrated approach on all levels of government, state, federal, local, school districts, community colleges, the whole 9 yards, with the private sector, and that's going to take a long time to create like that long-term strategy to build the interstate highway or go to the moon or like these big things that we've really done have been very, very integrated public-private sector. And so I think he's absolutely right. I'm not quite sure how exactly we do that, but having some component of tax incentives and taking care of your workers and investing in long term. And again, we would have to sit down with a bunch of really smart folks like Liz and economists across the board to figure out how to put that together and have a little more of a long term strategy. Real quick, I think in some of these countries, a little downturn now, but like Germany, they would keep their workers during a downturn, and they would educate them and train them up for when things came back in the upturn, and that would be paid for by the government. So things like that just have you looking a little more long term.
Well, and speaking of long term, of course, President Biden, when he was in office, one of his big strategies was clean energy investments. And it seems like as Trump has come in, a lot of those investments are being taken away. So if that was a long term plan, it's now going to another long term plan that's completely different. Let's go to Chris in St. Paul, Minnesota. Chris, go ahead with your thoughts. Is a reindustrialized America still possible? Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, I'm a engineer of 43 years, and One of your guests keeps talking about unions, and that is not the way to go. Look at a American EV versus a Chinese EV. It's all labor, that cost, and that's not going to go. Second thing is, I don't know if you can talk American kids to go into engineering. If you look at the grad schools in America, it's all foreign students, and so you're going to have to talk people into doing this. I don't know how you do that. Maybe you have better STEM education, and then finally, I think you're going to have to open up, some of these visas so we can import some of this talent. Trump's shutting the door on all that, but if you're going to reindustrialize, you're going to need some sharp people.
Right.
And unfortunately, right now, those people are coming from other countries. They're coming from, India and Asia, and I suppose India is part of Asia. But they're coming from other places.
Yeah, I want to get Elisabeth Reynolds' thoughts on that, Chris. But let me just ask you real quick. You said you were an engineer for 43 years. Why did you get into it in the first place?
Because I love it. It's the greatest thing in the world. I love making things. I love, creating them from nothing. I love it. I love it. It's the greatest thing in the world. But it's really hard to get into it. A lot of people are daunted by, taking some of the math, and it's not programming a cell phone. My D's in chemistry and physics were the things that made me not do that. But thank you for the call, Chris. Elisabeth Reynolds, what do you think about that? That so much of the talent has to be imported, even if you do have the jobs here in the United States.
Well, certainly that has been the case, that we are, we've had a decline in our engineering graduate school level, or undergrads and graduates to date. So we have to think about ways in which we are going to build out that skill base and that capacity. And that is an incentive system. I think that is about how to bring students in, show them early on, as Chris was saying, how interesting this is, put them on paths that bring kind of engineering and I'd say just shop floor skills back into the classroom. But we also need to rely on, and we always will have some need for international talent. That is both a sharing of ideas and knowledge and skills, but it's also about building out where we certainly aren't going to have all the engineers I think we need just homegrown. So we have to find a way that we keep those visas available. And also we've had a lot of success when you let foreign students stay in the country and continue to work here. I mean, the percentage of our startups that have been started by students who are from other countries is enormous. That is part of our startup culture. We have to remember that.
DeAndre, go ahead, Congressman.
I just want to weigh in here, because the frustrating part is I think our K through 12 system is just so antiquated. Like, it's not any fun for kids to go to school and really, don't get me wrong, I'm sure there's some good schools that kids enjoy going to, but for the most part, they're old buildings, they're hot, and as we move to summer and go back in the fall, they're cold in the winter. The kids are the poor. Don't underestimate the poverty issue in this country, where over 50% of kids that go to public school live in poverty. We're talking about a lot of social challenges that come to a head in our public schools. And so we have to reimagine how we do schools today. And because we want kids to be excited about exploring, the STEM or the STEAM. And a lot of kids get there different ways, and we cut a lot of those programs, especially in our poorer districts, where they're the extracurricular activities, the summer programming, the kind of stuff that the cool technology, all of that stuff, like, they don't have it. It's pay to play for sports and all of that. We all know what's happening here. And so until we make and let me be very clear too, this isn't just about throwing money at the problem either, because we've tried that sometimes and that doesn't necessarily work. But it's about a comprehensive approach to how are we going to reimagine educating our kids. They're in trauma. Their brain, their prefrontal cortexes aren't functioning because they're in trauma, so they're in fight or flight mode, which cuts off your prefrontal cortex. Their diets aren't great. They're not eating very good food. And so I just throw that out there to say, like, we can have you can't really have a discussion about how we're going to move kids upward and have upward mobility and getting them skills without dealing with all of these other problems. And it's not just throwing money at it, and it's not just creating voucher programs for our schools. There's got to be a public desire for us to join hands and figure this out, because if not, we're not going to rebuild the middle class, and there won't be people that can go, and we're going to have immigration problems, and these jobs are going to go offshore. That's the end result, and then everybody's going to be hurt by it.
Let's go to Michelle, who's in St. Louis. Michelle, welcome to the middle. Go ahead.
Yes. Great. Thank you for taking my call. One thing I'm not sure people are thinking about is when you have manufacturing here in this country, or you're bringing back manufacturing, there's a lot of pollution associated with that. I don't mean to sound cold, but there's a lot of pollution that's happening out there that we don't have now. You know, things are being built overseas, and they come here, the pollution stays there, so a lot of people are not seeing that. And then with Trump rolling back environmental regulations, what is that going to do for us, you know, pollution-wise? So
a great question.
I just put that out there for people to talk about. Thank you.
And I, by the way, I haven't been able to see the sun clearly in days because of these fires in Canada. Not that that's because of industry, but Liz Reynolds, what about the pollution aspect, the environmental aspect of having more manufacturing here closer to home?
Well, of course, historically, we have, you know, some good regulation in this country that has mitigated pollution and the effects of pollution from industry, and have been aggressive about it and had made a lot of progress on that front. The case is, when you go to other countries, I mean, there's a reason why we haven't had a lot of mining done in this country, and it's been done elsewhere, because their labor rules and their environmental rules are, you know, not things that we would support in this country. I think that the opportunity here is for us to actually do modern advanced manufacturing and industry with those environmental concerns in place, with a lot of the technology that can actually improve on the pollution that we see from these. And we've had a huge amount of effort in industrial decarbonization going on that's been quite successful. So my feeling is, without those regulations, we're in trouble, and the Trump administration has been attacking a lot of them. But really, advanced manufacturing, the kind of manufacturing we want to do here, is one that is going to be sensitive, I think, to pollution. And all of these companies right now, we have such a concern around energy security, right? The demand for energy is really high. And so companies are trying to figure out how to reduce their energy costs, how to reduce their waste, how to, in many cases, decarbonize. So those trends are hopeful. I think recent regulation are problematic.
And how to, I guess, restart nuclear plants where meltdowns occurred. They're literally going to do that, I think, 3 Mile Island, so that they can power, like, AI, so that we can all, you know, watch baby videos of Judge Judy and stuff like that. Ben is calling from Casper, Wyoming. Ben, go ahead with your thoughts.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm just calling in. I agree that we need to bring manufacturing back to the U.S. I think COVID showed us how kind of fragile our supply lines are. I think tariffs are the wrong way to go about it, though. Economy,
what would be the right way?
Psychology. Pardon?
What would be the right way if tariffs are the wrong way to get the manufacturing jobs back?
I think the right way would be positive incentives. Tariffs are kind of a negative incentive. It's teaching a kid not to cry by hitting the kid. What we need to do is give tax incentives, grants, land incentives to bring that manufacturing back. And once that manufacturing is developed, then we can start recouping that not only in, you know, increased GDP, creating those jobs, but down the road, slowly increasing taxes on those corporations now that they're here, instead of beating them with a stick and saying, hey, come back. If you don't, we're just going to get madder at you. Give them kind of a sweetheart deal to come in, build up that relationship over time to a point where it's beneficial for both the government, the communities, and the companies, and then start recouping your money through taxes, through tax that you get through income tax, through employment taxes, and grow that way, grow a healthy way that's not traumatizing the economy further.
Ben, thank you for that. Congressman, I imagine you agree with that. Tariffs are the wrong way, but that maybe... well, let me ask you this. If you become the governor of Ohio, how would you incentivize a company to come and build in Ohio?
Well, I think the CHIPS Act, which Liz knows all about, that was basically a national incentive to help these companies relocate here and build out here. You hate the race to the bottom where states are really competing against each other and giving away the tax base. But I think a lot of it's going to have to do, in Ohio, we got water, we got energy, those will be big incentives, is workforce. Like if you have universities that can do the research, which we do here in pretty good numbers, and you've got the workforce, I think it becomes a magnet for all of the kind of things that we talked about today, where we don't have the workers and, how are we going to do this? If you are producing the workers from your education system, K through 12, where they can graduate maybe with a little bit more training, get out into the workforce, you're talking about a significant advantage that you will be able to, along with your cost of living and other things, that you're going to be able to attract some of those folks. But again, that means you have to have healthy, skilled, and non-traumatic workers. And that means that K through 12 process has to look a heck of a lot different than we're just going to do testing and try to get kids up. And I think, putting the resources behind that are going to be really, really important.
Liz, I'm going to give you the last word just in 30 seconds. Is there anything that we missed in this hour that didn't come up from our callers or from me or from you or the congressman that we really should be thinking about in terms of reindustrializing America?
Let me just put it this way. We need to be investing in both technology and in workers to make this happen. All right. We need both of those things to make the industrial transformation take place. We have all the essentials. We have the innovation. We have a workforce that we're growing. We have demand now. We have a lot of agreement that we need a stronger defense industrial base. We need critical minerals, the semiconductors, energy, all of that. So we have all the ingredients, but we really need to see the investment in both the technology and the workers.
Well, a great note to end on. Elisabeth Reynolds, professor of the practice in the MIT Department of Urban Studies and Planning, and former Ohio Congressman Tim Ryan. Thank you so much to both of you.
Thank you. Great to be with you again.
And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. We've got extra episodes every week, only available on the Middle podcast feed. Next week, we're back here. We're asking you if you are afraid now to speak your mind freely. We're going to be joined by Tangle News editor-at-large Camille Foster and philosopher Cornel West. A show not to be missed.
As always, you can call in at 8444-MIDDLE. That's 844-464-3353. Or you can reach out at listentothemiddle.com. You can also sign up for our free weekly newsletter and support us with a tax-deductible contribution.
And if you have an idea for a show that you'd like us to explore here on The Middle, please get in touch at listentothemiddle.com. The Middles are brought to you by Long Nook Media, distributed by Illinois Public Media in Urbana, Illinois, produced by Harrison Patino, Danny Alexander, Sam Burmistad, John Barth, Annika Deschler, and Brandon Kondritz. Our technical director is Steve Mork. Next week.
You see it instantly. It's Coldwater Creek, the mark of exceptional workmanship and signature touches inspired by a Mountain West heritage. Distinctive styles created from quality fabrics, silhouettes perfected with just the right drape, feel-good fits offering ease of movement, and thoughtful details to elevate your look. Coldwater Creek's authenticity is embodied in every piece, embracing its confident spirit that carries through to today. Discover Coldwater Creek clothing, designed to fit your life the way you want. For a wardrobe you can count on season after season, visit coldwatercreek.com. Shop the new spring collection at 20% off $75 or more with code IHEART20.
Over the last couple years, Didn't we learn that the folding chair was invented by Black people because of what happened in Alabama?
The Montgomery Brawl.
This Black History Month, the podcast Selective Ignorance with Mandy B unpacks Black history and culture with comedy, clarity, and conversations that shake the status quo. The Crown Act in New York was signed in July of 2019, and that is a bill that was passed to prohibit discrimination based on hairstyles associated with race. To hear this and more, listen to Selective Ignorance with Mandy B from the Black Effect Podcast Network on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
1969. Malcolm and Martin are gone. America is in crisis. And at Morehouse College, the students make their move.
These students, including a young Samuel L. Jackson, locked up the members of the Board of Trustees, including Martin Luther King Sr. It's the true story of protest and rebellion in Black American history that you'll never forget. I'm Hans Charles.
I'm Menelik Lumumba.
Listen to The A Building on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is Ryder Strong, and I have a new podcast called The Red Weather. In 1995, my neighbor, Anna Trainer, disappeared from a commune.
It was nature and trees and praying and drugs.
So no, I am not your guru.
And back then, I lied to everybody.
They have had this case for 30 years.
I'm going back to my hometown to uncover the truth. Listen to The Red Weather on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is an iHeart podcast. Guaranteed Human.